There is a number that will make sense of everything you are about to hear. 3 meters. Not 4,000 tons. Not 210 meters of reach. Not the 18 months it took to design, or the 2,000 kilometers it traveled to reach the desert. The number that explains this entire machine. The decisions behind it, the records it broke, the problems it solved, is 3 meters wide. That is the width of a standard Chinese highway lane, and that is the width of the most powerful wheeled crane ever built. Those two facts should not coexist. One of them should have had to give. The fact that neither did is the whole story. Most records in engineering get broken the obvious way. You go bigger, more steel, more reach, more counterweight. Every crane that ever held the title before this one earned it by sprawling, spreading outriggers wider, adding axles, taking up more ground. That is the logic of the industry, and for 100 years, it worked. So when the engineers at Zoomlion sat down to build something that could lift 4,000 tons, more than 4 times what the best city construction cranes can manage, the obvious path was right there in front of them. Build wider, build heavier, build a machine that owns whatever ground it stands on. They went the other direction, because the problem they were actually solving was not a lifting problem. It was a geography problem, and geography does not care how strong your crane is if your crane cannot get there. China's wind energy program has pushed into territory that is, to put it plainly, brutal. Northwestern deserts, mountain corridors in Gansu, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, passes where the road is 1 lane wide and the drop on the left side is a few hundred meters of very clear air. These are the places with the wind. The strong, consistent, year-round wind that makes a turbine economically worthwhile. And these are exactly the places where the cranes that previously did this work simply could not go. The old method used crawler cranes, track-based platforms that move like tanks and lift like nothing else. They are genuinely impressive machines. But getting one to a remote mountain site meant taking it completely apart, loading it onto dozens of flatbed trucks, driving those trucks as close as the existing roads allowed, and then, if the existing roads did not go far enough, building new ones, carving switchbacks into mountain faces, cutting through terrain that had never seen heavy machinery. That civil construction alone could run months and millions before a single turbine section ever got lifted. And at the end, when the job was done, you had to take it all apart again and take it back out. Zoomlion's answer was to build a crane that drives itself in. All of it. On roads that already exist, under Chinese highway regulations that cap standard vehicle width at 3 meters. The ZA40000H7 has a 10-axle all-terrain chassis that is precisely 3.0 meters wide, 22.5 meters long, an all-wheel steering system that lets it climb a 20% gradient mountain road while loaded. It does not need an escort. It does not need special permits. It pulls out of a facility in Changsha and drives northwest, blending into the same highway traffic as the trucks and coaches around it until it reaches somewhere very far from anywhere. And then it goes to work. The biggest crane on wheels hid inside the width of a lane to get there. That is the paradox. And everything else about this machine, every mechanical choice, every design compromise, every engineering decision, is downstream of that 3-meter line. The place this machine was born does not feel like a factory should feel. Zoomlion's smart industrial city in Changsha covers 1 million square meters. That is not unusual for heavy manufacturing. What is unusual is what happens inside it at 2 in the morning when there are no workers on the floor and no lights on above the production lines. The machines are still running. They have been running since the shift started, and they will keep running after sunrise. The dark lines, that is what the industry actually calls them, dark lines, do not need illumination because there are no human eyes to use it. Just robots, moving through pre-programmed sequences guided by digital twin models, assembling precision steel components in the pitch black. 20 of those dark lines. 300 additional intelligent production lines. Over 2,000 industrial robots in coordinated operation across 12 separate smart factories, all feeding data back into a central AI system that is continuously checking tolerances, flagging deviations, and catching problems before a flawed part can travel 2 meters down the line. The output of all this one completed, fully rowed, ready-wheeled crane exits that facility every 18 minutes. Sit with that for a second. Not because it is a big number, but because of what it tells you. These are not consumer products. These are machines rated for thousands of tons, and they are being manufactured at the rhythm of a car factory, which means the ZAT40000H7 is not a one-off. It is not a prototype that broke a record and sits in a pavilion somewhere. It is a product, repeatable, scalable, already deployed across work sites that nobody in a city would ever hear about. The precision of how it was built is not remarkable for a machine like this. It is just Tuesday in Changsha. There is a line the engineers use when they describe this machine's internal architecture. They call it a split personality. It sounds like a diagnosis. It is actually a design principle. The ZAT40000H7 has 2 completely separate power systems, and they have never shared a drop of fuel. The lower half, the chassis, the 10 axles, the thing that moves, runs on a Mercedes-Benz 473 diesel, German engineering. It makes 300 Newton meters of torque, which is enough to push 22 meters of loaded crane up a steep mountain, switchback without the chassis losing its nerve. The tank that feeds it holds 700 liters. The upper half, the crane operations, the hydraulics, the actual lifting, runs on a Cummins QS M477C. American engineering. Its tank holds 1,000 liters, and every one of those liters exists purely to power the pump systems that move loads hundreds of meters into the sky. When the machine is in transit, it is a truck. A very strange-looking, incredibly long truck, but a truck. Burning German diesel, covering ground, following traffic laws. When it arrives on site, it becomes something else entirely. Different engine, different fuel source, different operational logic. The transition is not gradual. It is a hard divide baked into the machine's architecture. Why does that separation matter? Because shared systems create shared failure modes. If the chassis engine and the lifting system competed for the same fuel under load, you would get compromises, moments where the machine is neither fully mobile nor fully committed to the lift. Zoomlion removed that possibility entirely by making the 2 halves strangers to each other. German chassis, American arms. Neither one knows what the other is doing, which means neither one can interfere with it. For a long time, the standard method for installing a massive wind turbine at altitude involved a choreography that the people running it mostly hated. You brought in a 900-ton crane for the base sections. When it reached its limit, you swapped to a larger 1,800-ton crane for the mid-tower. When that one ran out of reach, a third crane, even larger, even more expensive to move, stepped in for the high-altitude work. 3 separate machines, 3 separate mobilization budgets, 3 separate windows of availability, 3 sets of weather dependencies that all had to align. And if one crane was delayed, stuck at a border crossing, waiting on a permit, held up by a breakdown, the whole sequence stalled. The ZAT40000H7 was designed specifically to make that entire system feel embarrassing. Its main boom is 95.4 meters of telescoping steel built around a single cylinder latch mechanism with dual side pins. Threading the heavy steel lifting cables through a boom that size used to be a day's long manual operation. Crews working at height, running cable by hand through pulley systems, stopping to check tension and alignment. On this machine, dual motors on a single winch do the same job in 40 minutes. When the crane arrives at the site, raises into lift position, deploys its outriggers, and locks its counterweights, the clock from road mode to full operational readiness is 30 minutes, not days of assembly, 30 minutes. And then the part that changes what these lifts actually look like. The ZAT40000H7 carries a proprietary single-arm autonomous lifting system that runs on a real-time AI balancing algorithm. What that means on the ground, it can hoist a 150-ton nacelle and a 130-ton rotor assembly simultaneously, and it holds positional tolerance to within 2 centimeters across the entire arc of the lift. 2 centimeters at 170 meters with wind moving. The old model relied on ground spotters watching the load through binoculars and radioing corrections up to the operator. A lot of skill, a lot of experience, and a gap of human judgment that the best crews narrowed but never closed entirely. This system does not have that gap. It measures, adjusts, and corrects in continuous loops from the moment a load leaves the ground. There is no moment when it is relying on a feeling. The economics of replacing 3 cranes with 1 compound quickly. Per project, a 25% reduction in field lifting costs. Roughly $415,000 saved. On a wind farm program running 40, 50, 60 turbines, that number stops being a line item and starts being a program. Zoom out far enough, and the real function of this machine becomes clear. China's electricity demand and China's best wind are separated by thousands of kilometers of empty geography. The demand is in the east. The cities, the manufacturing zones, the coastal corridors. The wind is in the west. The Gobi, the mountain passes, the high desert plateaus that most people will never see. Transmission infrastructure can bridge that distance, but only if you can get turbines built in the west at a scale and speed that justifies the investment. The turbines are getting bigger because bigger means more output per tower. A 6125 megawatt turbine produces meaningfully more electricity per installation than anything that came before it. The next generation, prototypes already running, commercial units already in development, will push toward 10 megawatts, then 15, heavier nacelles, taller towers, longer blades. All of it going up in remote terrain. The ZAT40000H7's full reach, with its main boom and combination jib extended, is 210 meters. It can hold 2 and 5 tons at 190 meters. These are not numbers calibrated to the turbines being installed today. They are numbers calibrated to turbines that do not fully exist yet. Machines that will be running in 5 years, in 10 years, in terrain that none of the current crane fleet can reach at all. There is one last detail that captures how precisely this machine was engineered. The counterweight system, the heavy load at the rear that balances whatever the crane is lifting at the front, uses an adjustable displacement mechanism that can shift the counterweight position 1.4 meters further back on demand. More distance from the pivot means more leverage. More leverage means you do not need as much physical steel to achieve the same balancing effect. Strip out the steel, and you strip out the transport trailers carrying it. 2 fewer trailers in the convoy. Less weight on the road. Faster mobilization at every destination. The efficiency gain is not dramatic at any single point. It just accumulates quietly at every stage of every deployment. Here is the thing about constraints. In most fields, a constraint is a ceiling, the thing that limits how good your answer can be. In engineering, a constraint is sometimes the only reason the answer gets built at all. The 3-meter highway rule should have made a 4,000-ton wheeled crane impossible. It is too wide a machine for too narrow a lane. The numbers do not work. Every instinct in the industry says you cannot do both. But the constraint was the brief. The engineers were not asked to build the biggest crane and then figure out the road problem later. They were handed the road problem first and told the crane had to solve it. And that order of operations changed everything. The chassis design, the powertrain philosophy, the counterweight system, the boom geometry, all of it shaped by the requirement to stay inside a lane that was never designed for anything like this. The cranes that came before the ZAT40000H7 were powerful the way a fortress is powerful. Fixed. Immovable, requiring the world to come to them. This machine goes to the world, up mountain roads, through desert corridors, past switchbacks where the drop on one side would ruin your whole day. It arrives, raises itself in half an hour, and lifts something the size of a skyscraper into the sky. And then it folds back down, drives out the same road it came in on, and goes somewhere else. Right now, across northwestern China, there are turbines spinning at altitude that would still be a planning document without a machine that could reach them. The next generation is already waiting, bigger towers, heavier nacelles, higher sights. And the crane that was built to be exactly 3 meters wide is already over-engineered to handle what is coming. The constraint did not limit this machine. It gave the engineers the only problem worth solving. If you made it to the end of that, you already know this one was different. Hit like if this changed how you think about what engineering actually is. Subscribe and ring the bell. The next one goes even deeper. And drop a comment before you watch this. What did you think the hardest part of building a desert wind farm was? I'm genuinely curious what people assume.